guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Being an abolitionist requires unlearning every single thing we've been told about jails, prisons, and police since birth. To consider people as full human beings instead of monsters and psychos. to prioritize community over our selfish need for revenge. This is awkward. 10 demands. And they're about to find out. Every city, every town, burn the precinct to the ground. Badgeless federales sweep you up without a sound. Now they're crying for the Constitution, but the movement moving since the dissolution of the institution of slavery to the slave codes made to be new slaves with new chains and chain gangs to Jim Crow. They imputed crime to color, collapsed communities for profit. Stop and frisk on body cams, reforms not for stopping it, but rather rendering a system even more permanent. So the rich rely on cops, and the cops do the murdering. The media reports to ensure the social scare, so everyone fears a world if cops weren't there. Statistics show cops are trained for collecting collars, and punitive systems produce recidivists and dollars. If you're poor, black and brown, you're born to the siren sound. Tell me how much money are we paying so you'll beat us down?
One time I'll say it out loud, honey. 2 a riot cop, 3 is a crowd. How much money are we paying right now so you'll beat us down? One time I'll say it out loud, honey. 2 a riot cop, 3 is a crowd. How much money are we paying right now so you'll beat us down?
How much are we paying for the cops in cages? Patrolling and chasing, turn the block to Hades. Controlling the nation, no pops for babies. We've been selling and throwing rocks for ages. There's no education, so we clock for wages. There's no medication, so there's stock in the basement. No justification, pop with no hesitation. No reparations, so we fight the enslavement.
One time I'll say it out loud, honey. 2 a riot cop, 3 is a crowd. How much money are we paying right now so you'll beat us down? One time I'll say it out loud, honey. 2 a riot cop, 3 is a crowd. How much money are we paying right now so you'll beat us down?
The revolution's now, we still can't breathe. You think it's revolutionary defunding police? That's phase 1, we will abolish the beast. Demilitarize and allocate funds to our needs. Cops don't stop crime, so we're placing peacekeepers. Training counselors, mediators and teachers. Freeing protesters, political leaders. And blasting revolutionary rap from the speakers. We getting reparations and apologies for past and current crimes, damaged psychologies. The war on drugs is over, watch the drop in all the robberies. Close the jails and prisons, equalized economy. Try me, and we could still be enemies. Without the death penalty, no illegal immigrants, no victims in the pens, no corporate profiting, no crime and punishment. We'll tend to mental ailments, apply an intervention, ending the surveillance, denying all detention, rebuilding our communities, village by village. It's time to check your white male heterosexual privilege.
One time I'll say it out loud, honey. 2 a riot cop, 3 is a crowd. How much money are we paying right now so you'll beat us down? One time I'll say it out loud, honey. 2 a riot cop, 3 is a crowd. How much money are we paying right now so you'll beat us down?
Okay, welcome back everyone to Anonymous Bites Back. We've been off the air for a few weeks. I'm guessing it's almost 3 weeks now. But we're back tonight with a special episode with a great guest, musician, activist, Awkward is his name. They probably seen him on social media, especially if you're on Twitter. We just played one of his songs. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to ask all of you guys to please share this episode. If you probably have noticed, we're all being shadow banned and censored heavily, especially on Twitter. So we need you guys' help to share this around. I'll find some ways to go around it, like posting the episodes from other accounts, other places, but we really need your help on this too. They're censoring Anons. We assume this has to do, somewhat has to do with the Assange situation and us reporting about this, and it's really getting out of hand. Of course, that's not going to stop us from broadcasting. We're on broadcasting on many different platforms, but it takes us a little more effort to get the episode on available everywhere. So, but thanks for listening anyway. And Awkward, thanks for being with us tonight. So if you want to start with explaining a little about yourself and maybe a little about the current situation and why you're into the activism scene.
We can't hear you, brother. You got to push the talk button while speaking.
All right, you can hear me now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So if you ask Andy, the friend of the Proud Boys, I'm an Antifa militant. I'm actually, I've been an activist for my entire life. I was raised by an activist mother, and, I'm predominantly focused on racial, social, and criminal justice. The song you just heard is called 10 Demands. It's shares the same name as an organization that I just co-founded. And we kind of formed organically in the creation of 10 Demands for Justice, The Road to Abolition, which is 10 demands, as the name suggests, on the road to abolishing police and prisons. I've also been involved recently with helping organize the general strike, and what else can I tell you about? I guess I'm probably most well known for the political hip hop music, like the song you just heard. I did a song right after Charlottesville, named after Heather Heyer, who was run over by a Nazi, also called Fuck Trump. And right now I think that we're in probably a perfectly scary time. The movement, has never been so strong, in this country at least, where I'm primarily focused, and I have the most knowledge about. This is bigger than the civil rights era, bigger than the anti-Vietnam War demonstrations. We've had 70 plus nights of protest in a row, protests in all 50 states. A number of down ballot progressives have been elected, including a pretty progressive DA in Multnomah County, Oregon, Mike Schmidt, who I interviewed and really got put on Andy's radar for that. And with the general strike gaining traction, the Million Mask March coming up, and groups like mine not only creating demands for substantive change, knowing that reforms intentionally don't work, but just elevate a system designed to criminalize certain populations and create profit for others. I think we have a multi-pronged approach, and despite, two terrible options for president, as you can see on the streets, as all of these congressional leaders will see, when we occupy Congress on Saturday, right in front of their homes, and as they're going to see in their emails and in their voicemails with the 10 demands, we're applying pressure from all angles, and you kind of have to know things are going to get really bad before they get better, and I feel like we're at that tipping point right now.
Well said. In regards to the 10 demands of justice, can you reiterate what those 10 demands are?
Yeah, sure. Right now, more so than ever before, the concept of defunding police has gained popularity or traction in, even less radical circles, and gotten to the point of being put before councils of major cities like New York and Minneapolis. But for us, it's not enough to defund the police. That's our first step, and it's only a part of that first step. You can't just defund the police and put those trillions of dollars into other carceral systems. That money needs to be reallocated to the most impacted communities first and foremost, but to all communities, focusing on intervention, education, healthcare, substance and mental abuse, mental health treatment, substance abuse and mental health treatment, mutual aid, mediation, and reparative justice. As we defund the police, one of the key ways that the police are so able to violate human rights so regularly and to such an incredible degree is through their excessive militarization, through a variety of programs and grants and backdoor methods. So our second, as we begin defunding the police, is in line and at the same time is to demilitarize the police. The third is, again, this is setting the roadmap for full abolition. So as we're defunding and demilitarizing, we need to immediately eliminate all forms of discriminatory policing, prosecution, and sentencing. That includes, decriminalizing race and poverty. Number 4 is instituting complete law enforcement transparency and accountability. Right now, cops kill with impunity. Their departments and their unions and their foundations protect them. So we want to make it a requirement through independent national databases and independent community-led, reviews, that all data is readily available, and that those cops and departments that are found guilty are held responsible. Which leads us to number 5, which is independent investigation of all police crimes and abuses of power. Instead of, creating another, special prosecutor's office or something like that, where we're doing it from within the system, this is an independent method of investigating and then responding. So any police officer who is found guilty needs to be immediately fired. The people who are victimized need reparations, and it should come from the cops' pensions and personal liability insurance. And any department that is found guilty of harboring these criminals, they should be the first to be abolished. Number 6 is install community representation, oversight, and safety measures. So this is where we get into, in more detail, what we believe should be done in place of the current system of cops in cages. And it's not a new form of policing. It's not the traditional community policing. Policing as a concept is thrown out the window. We replace them with peacekeepers and wellness checks, intervention, violence prevention, skills-based education, all of the other things that I mentioned before. Number 7 is, obviously very timely, I guess like all the rest, but we're seeing protests, as we talked about, all over the country, and it is our constitutional right to be there. And I personally believe that dissent is patriotic. And right now, despite the Constitution, there are anti-protest laws all over the country, and there are feds being called in to do even greater damage, to disappear people. Protesters have been killed. The cops themselves, the local police officers, the state police, they are doing the exact same thing. So we believe that, all counter protest measures, and obviously specifically counter protest violence, needs to end immediately. And along the lines of, along with that, all protest related convictions need to be expunged, and all protesters need to be freed from jail and prison. Number 8 is apologize and provide reparations. This includes indemnification to victims of police violence and racial discrimination in policing, prosecution, and sentencing, but it also includes reparations and apologies to all living descendants of African slaves and all living descendants of the First Nations, indigenous peoples of America. Number 9 is end the war on drugs and the criminalization of drug use and drug addiction. Obviously legalize marijuana, decriminalize at least all the other drugs, and invest in the communities that have most been harmed by the war on drugs, and make sure that it's not, once weed is legal, the same rich white people continue to profit while all the people in prison for the same exact thing, people of color, poor people, either sit there and rot, or they finally get out and don't have access to the same, business opportunities. So it is investing in the individuals who have been most harmed. And number 10, finally, is to end all carceral punishment. At the end of the day, when all is said and done, cops are defunded. We've proven that defunding police, removing police, and we're talking defunding to zero over time. We prove that this actually decreases crime, as in spite of what tough on crime people will tell you, the statistics show that interactions with police predict future criminality. There's also stats about how 1/3 of stranger murders in this country are committed by cops. Simply by removing cops, this will become a more safe civil society. Meanwhile, we're implementing all of these alternative forms of justice. We're building up the communities to protect themselves, to be educated, to have job opportunities, to have health care. The need for jails and prisons will no longer be necessary. But there are certain steps we can take right away that fall under the final demand. Freeing everyone in jails, prisons, youth facilities, detention centers, etc., who are elderly, disabled, or immunocompromised, all nonviolent offenders, undocumented immigrants who are criminalized just for being here, criminalized survivors, typically women who have been incarcerated for finally defending themselves against their abusers, and all those who are held on bail or for parole violations. It includes freeing all political prisoners, removing the part of the 13th Amendment that essentially allows for the prison industrial complex, which is, slave labor at, 0 cents to at most $1 an hour, creating products that all of us use, benefiting the same corporations that then invest in the politicians who create these tough on crime laws, and donate to the police foundations that are used to militarize the police. This is a system that started right after slavery with the slave codes and making petty theft a felony. It was designed to find an alternative to slave labor, and it's been working exactly as it was intended, which is why reform doesn't work. And this is an alternative that will actually create a more humanist society where, like I said, cops in cages will not be necessary.
Right now, I have two things. I wanted to just point this out. Obama actually demilitarized the police in 2016 before leaving office. But before that, he actually gave them military equipment, including rocket launchers. Rocket launchers, yeah, like the police need those.
Yeah.
And then immediately after Trump got in office, in 2017, he remilitarized them, and he allowed them to take down, pass down military equipment from the Pentagon to the police.
Correct. It's the Pentagon, it's the Department of Homeland Security, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, the FBI, the Justice Department. There are tons of grants and laws and programs that are in effect today that enable this. And one, I try to, for me, being an activist is, to me, like everything I do every day is a political statement. And so for me, I've spent a lot of time involved in leading marches and direct action, but I've also been a journalist for 20 or so years. And one of the first things I did after graduating college was go back to the town I grew up in and use reporting to prevent this small town police department from getting AR-15s. It was this small budget item that no one was paying attention to. And I intentionally covered the police commission meetings. I discovered this, and by reporting it, people were like, they don't need those. And to your point, there are other police departments in sometimes also small rural towns that have grenade launchers, that have tanks, completely unnecessary. They're very capable, as we've seen with George Floyd or with Eric Garner, of choking people to death. They don't need to do it with that type of, military might. And, part of the demilitarization and the ending of carceral punishment is ending the school to prison pipeline. In certain communities, children are basically prepped. 1 in 3 black boys born today and tomorrow and every day before and after are going to end up in prison. That's the system we have today. They go right from schools where they have insane amounts of surveillance, overly extreme policies about behavior. There are all of these truancy laws. They are surveyed and they walk through metal detectors, and they have armed police watching all of their moves. They are trained from birth to go to prison. And that's a big part of this also, is demilitarizing our schools, getting cops out of hospitals.
Now, as an artist, what's your thoughts on culture kind of causing that as well, such as like music, movies, but especially music? A lot of these mainstream rappers, that's what they're pushing. They're pushing the prison industrial complex and pushing a negative message for the youth.
I don't agree with that. I believe that they are telling their story, and their story is that. It's also, and I'm not trying to be hard on you, it's also a privileged stance to say that, glamorizing the only way for people in their communities, in many cases, to reach the level of wealth that they see among white communities, that like they don't have a right to want the same things that they see on TV or they see on in the movies. Now, like if a black man drives a Mercedes, he gets pulled over because they think he's a drug dealer. Like this is the society we live in, and in a lot of places, for many years, these communities, through mass incarceration, have been hit so hard. So many men are in prison that their only option is criminality. And so if a rapper who lives in a really dangerous neighborhood, for example, whose only people he's had to look up to are the people who ran the streets, who actually, in their minds, and in many cases accurately, are the ones protecting the neighborhood, not the cops who come and stop and frisk them and beat them and put them in prison. That's what they're going to rap about. Those are their heroes. To me, most of the people listening to rap are young white kids anyway. Like, if they want to go, pick up guns and pretend they're gangbangers, real gangbangers will take care of them. A lot of rappers do a lot of positive things also, give back to their communities. They speak in their communities. They like on Thanksgiving, they're the ones providing all the turkeys. And they are examples of people who made it outside of criminality. They made it in a legal manner through art. So to ask them to rap about something they don't know, to me, is unfair, and to assume that they shouldn't want the same stuff that everyone else does is like a privileged stance. But I, as a working, I come from a working class Jewish family, and in the grand scheme of things, as a straight male who, with white skin, I am privileged. So I don't rap about, and I don't rap about things I don't know. For me, what I use music for is to express human emotions, things that I've gone through, whether it's experiencing anti-Semitism, or just, a bad relationship, things that people can relate to. But most of my music is specific issues that are affecting everybody and affect affect most people more than they affect me. Like, I'm not going to rap about things that I didn't live. And for me, it's a tool for my activism. Like, hip hop helped me survive. Like, if it wasn't for my mom and for music, I might be dead. Like, as a kid, I was incredibly violent. I was incredibly angry. It started with anti-Semitism, and then I quickly discovered that the abuse and, the interactions with police, for example, that I had, which were terrible, were nothing like the interactions that the very few people of color experienced in my town. What they dealt with from the Christian white rich kids was way worse. From the cops was way worse. And then obviously I looked even further beyond the small town I grew up in, and this all happened very quickly. But I went from literally following in my cousin's footsteps, who helped create Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice, decades ago, literally just on a constant search for Nazis to beat up, putting myself at risk, having run-ins with the police, doing graffiti, whatever it was, to like working with the New York Civil Liberties Union, the Anti-Defamation League, using music to express my anger and teach people while entertaining them. For me, like I wouldn't be here without hip hop. So I don't believe that hip hop is responsible for people dealing with their situations. I feel like being criminalized from birth, living in poverty, being oppressed, that's what creates all of the things that you're talking about.
So I got a question about this. So being from outside of your country, you mentioned that 1 in 3 young black kids ends up in prison eventually, and I know that the USA has the largest number of incarcerated people in the world, right? In raw numbers and also in percentage of its people. Now, now I know that all these prisons are also commercialized. I mean, there's actually money being made on these prisons.
Just to clarify too, for those who don't know, it's not just private prisons. State and federal prisons are also creating huge amounts of profit.
Yeah, so I wonder, like, shouldn't we like put also the emphasis on that it is like a completely like a commercial system is like set up, whereas actually there's profit being made on like the poor people of society, and that money is being used to do even worse things around the world. It's literally being used to fund this militarization and to fund illegal wars around the world and all these things.
And that's why I've been asked, is it possible to be an abolitionist and like not be anti-capitalist? Is it possible to abolish police and prisons without abolishing capitalism? I have a feeling that the first answer is no, that it's inherent in being an abolitionist, at least in this country, that you would have to be anti-capitalist. Although I haven't honestly, I am not certain about either of these answers, but I'm more certain about the second answer, and I do really believe that it is possible to abolish police and prisons without abolishing capitalism. I'm not saying that is the answer, like that is what we should do. I think in an ideal world we wouldn't have 5 billionaires owning more wealth than the rest of the country. But at the same time, there's so many issues. Like we as a group, 10 Demands, are also working on 10 Demands for education, for environmental justice, for electoral justice. Like there are a ton of issues that all intersect, for economic justice. And a lot of these things are, you'll find within 10 Demands for Justice, which is racial, social, and criminal justice. With the demilitarization of the schools, you are touching on education. With decriminalizing poverty and ending all, for-profit, not only prisons, but for-profit policing. The way that people are fined and ticketed and all of that stuff. These issues all intersect. But I think long story short, if you only focus on the profit motive, I think people tend to just lose sight of how much bigger it is. And that it's all like that, and also like people tend to focus on private prisons and the privatization of prisons. But as I said, the state and federal systems are very intentional also. Like for one thing, people in the cities are the ones being arrested and sent upstate to prisons that are built in poor rural white communities so that these people can have jobs. That's just racism, And then you have the fact that phone calls cost $15 a minute. You have so the phone companies are making a ton of money. You have the companies that like Sodexo Marriott, who, they're the ones who are doing the food at colleges and universities as well as prisons. Obviously very different food because prison food is disgusting. But the people making the bedding, like corporations are profiting in tons of different ways. And so are specific communities in this country. And so having said that, like, to me, it's like, we can't just focus on money. We can't just focus on private prisons. We have to acknowledge it though. Like, as I said, this started right after slavery. It came at a time during like this Enlightenment period where all of a sudden people didn't want to stone and hang people in public anymore. So they figured, what are we going to do with the people breaking laws? Like, let's put them in penitentiaries for penitence. It was a short-term measure initially before people were put on trial, but then it was like longer term for penitence. And nowadays there is no penitence. There's no rehabilitation. The fact that they made it so that the Pell Grants don't apply to people in prison, so they can't get higher education. What prisons do is create better criminals. Like, recidivism is the big issue. Like, the people who go to prison go back to prison, and the people who are recidivists are typically people of color and typically poor people. So the system is tremendously large and tremendously intricate. But there are specific things, if you look within each of the 10 demands, that can be done to lead us down the road to where, like I said, cops and cages aren't necessary. And that can be done without destroying capitalism. There are tons of other ways that these corporations that don't care about us, that don't pay taxes, can still make exorbitant profit and pay their CEOs hundreds of millions of dollars without doing it using slave labor and without doing it by investing in prisons.
Now, what I wanted to add on to what you said about the prison industrial complex and stocks and all of that is...
I got a good one. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to say, because earlier you said that you don't
mentioned
think
stocks. You reminded me of something. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. But what I wanted to say is, when you said earlier that you don't think that the music industry has any sway on the
Oh
prison
no, wait,
industrial
hold on. No,
complex,
no, no.
wait, wait,
Wait,
wait,
hold
wait.
you maybe I misunderstood you. I said that the rappers are not responsible. The music industry is enslaving young black men and women on the regular through these terrible contracts where these young people are so excited. Like that's a whole other thing. But like what I was, and maybe you weren't even going there, but I don't think the music industry is not responsible for a lot of problems. I just don't blame rappers for the violence.
Well, what I wanted to say is that a lot of these big record companies, they have stocks in prison industrial complex, various different private prisons.
Interesting.
And even Kanye West has brought that up very recently. And I don't know what your opinion is on Kanye, but I mean, he's brought it up, and he's actually said something about it.
Mhm.
And it's true. Like if you look into it, some of these big record companies who are managing artists, they have private industrial prison stocks, and on top of that, some of these record execs, these art that run some of these artists aren't actually even writing their own music.
Yeah.
So, that's where I was saying to you before that about culture having a influence on people, not just minorities, but everybody.
I'm not saying it doesn't have an influence. Yeah, I mean, it obviously influences people. I just don't want to go down the road of joining, if I remember correctly, the Tipper Gores or whatever of the world who are
Right.
blaming, rappers for the violence when that's the world they're coming from. I mean, I'm completely, as a rapper who obviously writes his own lyrics, who comes from, a part of hip hop that, if you don't, you're a fraud. Like, I'm not in favor of these creations, like the boy band versions of rappers, and some of these guys like Tekashi 6ix9ine pretend they're criminals when they're not, and like actually like create criminality, like they become criminals as like once they've been found. Like, I don't know enough about him, but all I know is like that definitely happens too. But I mean, like for a lot of people, music was their outlet and their savior. And I think like the people running the record labels are problematic. I think, the ones who, I think any corporation or any individual investing in any stock, or to be more like, broad about it, if you invest in a mutual fund and aren't doing the research, or any other fucking fund, an ETF, like if you're not paying attention to what that's investing in, then you're responsible. Like, there are socially responsible investments where you can contribute positively and earn an income if like, that's your thing. And I'm not going to even, waste time getting into that. Like, I'm not in a position, I don't have interest in earning money off of like monopoly shit like the stock market. But I definitely think there's a conflict of interest in record labels that are putting out artists who are saying things that are bad examples, investing in what is profiting off of the results of these bad behaviors. But it's not the root. It's not that is not going to be my focus. I'm not going to target the music industry and clean that up. Like, that's a great cause, and that can be Kanye's cause if he wants. He certainly doesn't care about black people or communities, but if he wants to fix the music industry, he can do that. Like, for me, I want to point the blame at the people who are actually responsible for creating these systems and creating these situations where this is the reality that these people are living in.
Now,
Yeah.
the other question I have for you is, earlier you said that you wanted to completely abolish police and prisons. what would you do with rapists and child molesters and like
Right.
all of these actual violent people? Like, I understand where you're coming from. Like, I agree. Like, the non-violent offenders, I don't think anybody should go to prison for drug-related offenses or, anything non-violent.
Right.
But the violent offenders, what are we going to do with them? Because we need a place to put people like that. Because some of those people, they're not going to go through remediation. As an example, recently there was a man who raped a woman, and he got out because of COVID-19. And you know what he did? He went and killed the woman after he got out. Immediately after he got out. So I mean, like, what do we do with those types of people?
So first off, if you want to focus on rape first, obviously that's a heinous crime. It happens a lot in this country. The first thing I'm going to say is what we're doing now doesn't work. Okay? Putting them in prison doesn't work. So we have to find a solution. Because what we did when we put this guy in prison is we did not fix what is happening to that woman now. We didn't protect her. We didn't address the trauma. We put someone away surrounded by other criminals and then arbitrarily let him out when people who have been convicted for things they haven't done are sitting there with COVID, like my friend Kensu Temujin. And so this is all part of a long-term process where, one, we are creating a better society where there will be fewer rapists. So that's number one. Number two, I do not believe that most people cannot be rehabilitated. And I also know from research and statistics that most perpetrators of violence have been victims themselves, and that most victims actually prefer education, rehabilitation, job training, and all these types of programs that I'm talking about, and reparative justice and mediation over police and prisons. So that's like, so I get this question a lot. It's the most common question. What happens with the rapists and murderers? Right now, most rapes are not investigated. There are thousands, if not millions, of rape kits just sitting in police departments that will never get touched. Not to mention that 40% of police officers admitted to abusing their wives. So police are the most violent. We don't need them in our society with guns and power. Prisons are not fixing the people going there or helping the people who are victimized. So that doesn't work either. So throwing up our hands and saying we're not going to try anything is not the answer. Then when it comes to murder, as we said, 1/3 of all stranger murders in this country are committed by cops. They are the most violent people in this society. Most other murders are committed. Most murders are not stranger murders. Most murders are committed by people who know the people they are murdering. So we have to investigate what is creating the scenarios where that is happening. Certainly, having better background checks so that guns are not so readily available, and not having cops so we know that they're not going to come storm our homes with guns and we don't need to protect ourselves, like, that's going to help. There are fewer murders. Not only are there fewer people in prison, there are fewer cops, etc. in the UK, for example. There's also fewer murders because it's a different society and there aren't this exorbitant amount of guns. So why are people killing people that they know? A lot of it are robberies gone bad. Why are people committing robbery? Addiction that has been untreated, poverty that has not been fixed. So if we fix all of these underlying causes, we're going to have a lot less of it. People are like, what about serial killers? They amount for less than 1% of the murder in this country. It's not an issue. Like, yes, they're bad, but it's not the thing we should be focusing on. And what we're doing now doesn't work.
Hey, so I do have a question that goes into that, and that's an ideological question. So then we argue that the police can be be removed, right? It doesn't serve a purpose anymore. Then we're talking about what about then the rapists and the murderers, and there will be investigations against them, and it will be coming like from agencies like the FBI, for example, the federal institutions. So now I have a question, and that is, if the state police, the local police is gone, won't that mean that the federal government will take over tasks like that, or is it, that's also going to be abolished?
No, yeah. I mean, we do not believe in any form of carceral punishment or policing of any kind. If it were up to me, we wouldn't have surveillance of any kind. Part of the 10 demands is, ensuring that all public-private partnerships for law enforcement surveillance are immediately terminated. Again, this doesn't happen overnight, and I don't personally have all the answers. For one thing, while I've theoretically believed in this cause for over 20 years, I've also fought for small changes over those 20 years. I lobbied Congress for the repeal of the Rockefeller drug laws, which put tons of poor people of color in prison in New York for excessive periods of time for having possession for nonviolent crimes. I believe that there's a ton of things that can be done now that are happening in all these different areas where we're changing, we're defunding police, we're creating alternatives with those resources, and we're changing laws that are specifically targeting poor people and people of color. We're freeing all of the people who we know can be freed right now. And as this is happening, as society is changing, as we're seeing that cops do not deter crime, that prisons do not deter crime, that what is deterring crime is the lack of those things and these better, safer communities and social programs, these solutions will come. I obviously believe that there need to be first responders, people who deal with emergencies. There need to be peacekeepers and wellness checks instead of militarized cops and patrols who are meeting quotas and targeting criminalized communities. Do I have all the answers though? No, I don't know exactly the mechanisms by which people who break rules would be taken into custody, so to speak. I have a better sense of the way reparative justice works though. People are held responsible, as human beings. They owe a debt to society and more importantly, to the people that they have harmed. But we all commit crimes. I think what's telling is that the people that are considered monsters and are certain people. The people who are arrested are certain people. The fact that the penalty for crack cocaine for decades was 100 times worse than the penalty for cocaine. All of these things are really telling about why we have police and prisons in the first place. It's not to deter crime. It's to create new slaves. So we have to find a solution. And I personally don't have all the answers. I also get a ton of my information, my mindset, there are black women, feminist abolitionists who've been doing that, who are older than me and have been doing this longer than me and are more directly impacted than I am, and I take my lead from them. I mean, people like Angela Davis, Michelle Alexander, Mariam Kaba, groups like Movement for Black Lives, Critical Resistance. I would certainly recommend going to 10forjustice.com and looking at, our How It Works page, which is always kind of in progress, but even more so the resources page, because there are tons of people who are smarter than me and have written more than me who have better answers to all of this stuff.
Now, I agree with you on completely abolishing privatized prisons, right? But local prisons is where I would disagree, because I think you need
All right.
like a place to put. Wait.
Let me stop you there. 7 out of 10 people in jails have not been convicted of a crime. We want to
Well,
abolish local jails now.
Well, wait. Hold on. Like, I agree with you on getting rid of all the nonviolent and drug crimes and stuff like that. I think that's all stuff that can be remediated. What I don't agree with is, we do need a place to put rapists, child molesters, and actual murderers.
Currently, it has to be what there is, which is why this is, more realistic, less pie in the sky, which is a stupid phrase, but there are other sets of demands that, they're not necessarily taking them to Congress people. There are not intermediary steps, because they're outright abolitionists, and they're going to tell you that what is happening now doesn't work, and that's it. Like, we need a better solution, but they don't necessarily have the exact answer you're looking for as to what happens today with these people. It is definitely not too late to fix a lot of people, but it's, it is we are in the middle of, it's not like we can put society on pause, fix everything, and then hit play again, and now we have solution. Right. So yeah, until we're in a place where all of these new systems are established, we do have to have a better solution. We have to do the best with what we have. So, that's why there are steps in 10 demands, and that's why, given the statistics about who is in jail, it's poor people who cannot afford cash bail. The first thing that needs to happen is ending cash bail. People who are not safe, people who are it is believed will immediately go out and kill 100 people. We obviously don't want them running around the streets. I can't vouch for letting those people run free. But I'm also not going to say that I want them to be in prison. I'm not going to say I want them to be in jail. I want a better solution. It's just not here yet.
Yeah, I do agree with you have to put more emphasis in society on rehabilitating people, especially for all these drug crimes. I mean, it's very easy to just throw all these drug crimes in the healthcare system and not in the prison system. I mean, if you have a heroin abuser, a heroin junkie, after a while he doesn't want it anymore. He wants to get off it, and you can just put him in a healthcare system, and it will be fixed. You can treat it as a healthcare problem, and that's one thing I do like about my own country. We do have that here in the Netherlands. But I do have another.
Angela Davis says prison relieves us of the responsibility of seriously engaging with the problems of our society.
Yeah,
it relieves us of this responsibility. We put them away and we forget about them. The only people who remember them, kind of en masse, are the people making money off of them, but they certainly aren't remembering the individuals. So that's what you're saying. Healthcare is a solution to a lot of issues. Mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment, these are things that would help. Having equal education will be a tremendous, improvement. There are so many things that's why it's all interconnected too. One of the demands is not this overarching demand of equal education, but obviously if everyone had equal education, they'd have better opportunities, and so there'd be fewer criminals.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that. I don't disagree on that. I don't disagree on getting rid of these ridiculous bail assertions for nonviolent crimes. Even for traffic tickets, there's bail if you get too many. And I just want to tell a quick story real quick. Years ago, I was in prison, or I was in jail, and when I was in jail, I was actually threatened by the warden and an officer, and they told me to sign over $50 that was in my wallet to the jail or I would have a quote accident in the brig. And my response to them was, what does the accident in the brig mean? Does that mean you're going to kill me? Because that was like what it seemed like. And, I witnessed that corruption for myself. Yep. And I 100% agree that prisons breed corruption and breed a unfair society. But in my regard, I think that there's a way to keep a local prison and then have citizens oversee it, where there's not just police that would be overseeing it.
Who do we empower? And this is why there are problems with community policing too. As long as you try to reform the system and do it a little bit differently without dismantling it, you're going to run into the same problems. Because once you empower regular citizens to oversee the people who are locked in cages, you're going to run in. I mean, look at the Stanford prison experiment. You're going to have the same way that these people are treating those in jail. There's still separation of like criminals and good people. Like there has to be an alternative that does not entail caging people like animals.
Well, yeah, no, I definitely agree with some of the crimes, that are quote unquote crimes that you've discussed, right? But I'm talking about the violent crimes, and the way that I see it, that it might work, is because now we have the ability to use a webcam. What if there was constant surveillance that was able to be watched by the whole entire public? Then you wouldn't have the element that's going on of abuse of prisoners, and then you could move forward with mental evaluation and mental help and all of that with some of the people in prison. I mean, some of the offenders, you might be able to get them back in society, but some of these people, you can't. Like, I personally hunted pedophiles for years. There's fucking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pedophiles. So, like, it's a crazy number of people. How do we deal with those types of people? We can't have them out in the streets.
What I know, I agree, they can't be on the street the way they are now in this society. I have to agree with that. But again, there has to be a better solution. Like, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist. So I don't know enough to be able to say one way or another that these people can, that I just don't believe that the solution is, throwing tons of people. So like, if this is a mental illness that can't be changed, then they should not be incarcerated for that. So like, that's the problem, is like incarceration period is the problem. So there just has to be better solutions that address these things at the root causes, where everyone is protected.
Right.
Hey, so
I go ahead.
Yeah, I know I have a difficult question, perhaps. I mean, because early on we mentioned the whole thing about capitalism, right? And being the prison system being commercialized, being behind most of this. But I just think in the past I've called this actually post-capitalism and not capitalism. It is kind of like the result of an open market, that like a few big companies survive the market, and like all these small companies get pushed away, and these super huge companies eventually get like powers outside of the capitalist market. They get influence in government, they work together with government, and then you have these huge companies running the prison system together with the government. And being that you're an anti-fascist, Awkward, we've seen this in Europe with the rise of fascism, actually, that a selection of huge companies was working together with the fascist states back then in Italy, in Germany. Talk about huge companies. We now know like companies like Bayer, Monsanto, for example, was called under the Nazis was called IG Farben, was working together with the Nazis, and making the tools for them. So my thing is is it is it against capitalism, or are we actually dealing with something else? It's actually post-capitalism. We're dealing with the results of a very weird turn in society. Like personally, like capitalism, a small business owner making some money, like selling some hot dogs or something, is not a threat. I guess I personally feel that it's actually these huge conglomerations, these huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not
It's
sure.
capitalism. It's capitalism and globalization. And yeah, it's these conglomerates that you're talking about. Like, I don't think that in a socialist society, like people think of communism in this way, or even socialism in this way, where it means that the government literally controls everything, and that's not necessarily true. The way communism is played out historically in most countries has not been the most positive. And I don't actually identify with any particular ideology in this way. But, there are tons of, kind of theories about ways that societies can be structured where it's more, I guess, socialist, libertarian, anarchist, to me, like combinations of those elements where, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having your own business. There's absolutely nothing wrong with paying taxes to a government that is really elected by the people and works for the people. What we have now, if you want to call it post-capitalist or whatever, is, corporations that directly influence politicians who are in bed with the corporations, doing insider trading, getting investments from them, voting on things based on what these corporations need. Like the FDA, like allowing certain drugs that are going to kill people and not other drugs that, might save them based on, corporate politics, and that's the problem. And these corporations not paying taxes, while people like us pay taxes, and all of that money goes to fight wars overseas and take over other countries that that we're claiming we're doing it for democracy when we don't have democracy here. That of course is the problem. Those are all the problems. If it's capitalist to want to earn a living, then there's nothing wrong with being capitalist. I don't know if that is capitalist, though. I think that's like everyone has to eat, and it would be pretty hard to have just one massive commune, or kibbutz that is the entirety of the United States of America. There has to be limitations on these corporations. They need to pay the exorbitant amount of taxes that they should be responsible for based on the amount of money that they earn. Billionaires should be forced to, give back to the communities. Like, there's so much wealth. There's no reason that 40 million people go to bed starving every night. There's no reason that another 30 million are about to be homeless because of evictions during COVID. I mean, it's asinine, and that is this capitalist or post-capitalist system certainly at work.
It's true. Yeah. And I just want to add, man, you forgot that the DOJ protecting Wall Street. I just wanted to add that one on, because that's a big one.
Yeah.
Especially with Trump and everything that's been going on with the SEC and Jay Clayton and Steve Piken. Those two people, they came from Wall Street. It's a revolving door that what we're witnessing. That it's from lawyers to Wall Street to the DOJ to government to lobbyists. It's a revolving door, and it's just corrupt. They protect each other. That's what it is. It's a system where the corrupt protect each other, and
we suffer, we starve, and that's what the general strike and Occupy Congress are about. Like the Senate literally went on vacation. Like, they don't give a fuck about us, man.
Yeah, and that's why I also mentioned the concept about post-capitalism. Like I want to give this example. Like you have a U.S. military budget every year, and everyone pays taxes, and it goes into this huge military budget. This is public money, right? But every year, this money is used to pay Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and these companies, and this money flows into them, into their hands. So this is public money, and it goes from the poor into the hands of a few super big corporations. And I wonder if this is even capitalism. This is state funded.
Yes, it is state funded. I don't know what you want to call it. Like the label is less important.
Robbery.
You know, like all I know is that every time I pay taxes, I'm sick to my stomach because I know where it's going. And the only reason I pay because I know where it's going is because I don't want to be put in prison for not doing it. And, you know, like that's another thing. Like we should be able to allocate our tax money to where we want it to go. Things would be very different if we got to decide where our money went.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. And I'm the same way, man. Like running my own business and everything, when I get hit with that tax bill, I'm just like, well, fuck, here I go. Have to pay the government and go into the military industrial complex. And I feel like it is. I feel like it's theft. I feel like it's theft being stolen from people and being used in the military industrial complex. That's the way I feel about it.
Yeah. And that's why to me, like, we have to do all of these things and we have to keep up. Like we can't give up. Like we have to support the protesters. We have to give to bail funds. We have to give to mutual aid funds if we have the money. We need to show up on the Congress people's doorsteps and force them back to work. We have to put these 10 demands in front of their, on their desks, and we have to vote in as slow as it's, like we can't just abandon voting. Like Cori Bush, a Black Lives Matter activist, was elected this term. Like that is incredible progress. It's not going to solve all of our problems. And certainly, as we've seen with some of AOC's choices, like the system corrupts even the people that we perceive to be the best. But the more people, like Jason Call in Washington, who not only endorsed the 10 demands for justice, but adopted them as his criminal justice platform, like the more people like that we put in positions of power, the more things will shift in the right direction. But we're up against a huge monster. Like, there's a reason that most of the progressives lost again, because the amount of money and the amount of corruption that is used to prevent their election is tremendous, which is why we can't just rely on voting. What happened with Booker in Kentucky, like the amount of voter fraud and the amount of manipulation in voting to prevent people who are going to vote for progressives from their votes being counted is astonishing. It's criminal. It's the exact type of stuff that we claim we are going into other countries for.
Well, right, yeah, but the U.S. has rigged elections in other countries as well, and WikiLeaks.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're like, oh, this country's corrupt. We're going to go there and fix it. Only we're responsible for the coups in those countries, and we do the same thing here.
Yeah, it's absolute insanity. And then you have warring intelligence agencies fighting each other, and they're both involved in criminal conduct, rigging elections. Like, for instance, there was during Barack Obama's I think it was second election, the Stratfor firm has an email where it says about rigging the election for Obama in WikiLeaks. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but it's true. And then in 2016, we had all the emails that came out where the DNC's rigging, and so it's both sides that are rigging.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt,
I mean,
this is not just a Republican issue, and it's the vitriol that people like me and probably you guys receive for even having the audacity to question the Democratic Party. It's unbelievable. They don't care about us either. It's just that they're all profiting off the same stuff. They're all behaving the same way. It's honestly, it's the reason that MLK said, that it's like essentially, and I'm certainly paraphrasing, that like it's the neoliberals that are the greater problem. The people who pretend to be your friend and just really want to maintain their power and be nice to you are more problematic than the people who are your enemies. Like the Republicans can be outright racist and say they don't give a shit. The Democrats will lie to your face and tell you they do, and trick the majority of Americans into believing it.
Well, it actually used to be the opposite way. The KKK and all that was kind of around with the Democrats.
I don't.
They were the. It's what's crazy, man. It's like
but
it
that's
went
a
from one side.
That's a fascist talking point, though. Like that's the kind of
shit
truth,
though. It's
but
the truth, though.
But who cares? I mean,
I'm
yes, it's part of history, so like it's good to know that. But it doesn't influence in any way what is happening now. Like it doesn't matter now that the people who are the KKK are terrible people. It doesn't matter what political party may have been involved in the beginning.
No, I'm just saying it's just interesting to see that switch. When did that happen? If anybody...
I don't know. I mean, and I don't know. Like, yeah, it is certainly interesting. It's important to note for historical purposes, but that is used against people like me all the time, like, which is just absurd. And I just, like, if this is on Twitter, you just get blocked. Like, if you say that, like I'm voting for Trump because, I'm not a racist. Democrats are the racists. They created the KKK. That's fabulous.
Well, yeah, that's dumb. I mean, the thing, it's like anybody who's like saying I'm voting for this person or that person. I mean, the choices that we have right now are pretty much as bad as they were in 2016. I mean, Biden has a very colorful history. Same with Trump, obviously. I mean, but Biden has a colorful history too. They're both corrupt in their own different ways. Like,
right. Biden has done it in positions of elected power, and Trump has done it as a recipient of an inheritance and a recipient of the ideals of his Nazi father. Well, I mean, they're certainly both terrible. I think the only thing that differentiates them really is, like, I think that there are certain things that Trump has no problem saying and doing that Biden, because out of fear for his reputation, probably wouldn't say or do. He's also a racist rapist. He wrote the crime bill. Like, he's not a good guy. He doesn't care about us. And Kamala was the worst possible choice. She was incredibly destructive, like beyond belief. Like, I literally on Twitter put together a list of like 20 just horrifying things that she did involving, terrorizing the black and brown communities, the poor communities, and as well as the, just like hard to believe the levels of corruption as well.
That's one of the last things that I said on Twitter, and then I was locked out. That's all I got to say. Yeah, that's all I got to say. I tweeted out Kamala Harris and then said that she was...
Oh, you said that. I said it in the group chat.
Yeah. I tweeted out Kamala Harris, like, scam, and the word Kamala Harris combined, and then said that, she profited off the private prisons. She put innocent people in the prison, profited off of it. Not only just drug offenders, but also just non-violent offenders and innocent people. I mean, like, it's a known fact for her. Yes. But the thing is, if you say something like that and you don't have the protection of a blue verified account, you're fucked. Because then you'll get reported by like 100,000 people. That's probably what happened, maybe.
I was thinking the exact same thing. The K-Hive, as they're called, from what I've heard, is incredibly powerful on Twitter. They have groups designed strictly for getting people removed who say negative things about her. And because of my blue check, I believe I've been spared.
Yeah. So I do for the listeners too. Like, I think people have to realize that this military-industrial prison complex, I guess you can call it now like that too, is present in both political parties and has been for a very long time, and it influences candidates on both sides. And the only way I personally feel you can change it is to have a huge grassroots movement separate from everything, forcing them to change from the inside or creating its own party. That's how I personally feel about it. You need a grassroots. They're not going to disappear. They're everywhere in these parties, both parties, I think.
Yeah, there's
Can I
a
ju-
movement. There's a movement now for a third party. The Green Party has been identified as being very corrupt and problematic, and the Working Families Party's been around for a long time. In a lot of local elections, there are people who are listed as Democrats and Working Families Party, but there's a movement for a People's Party that has a new, that is doing an alternative convention coming up. These are friends of mine, and they're having Nina Turner, Cornel West, Marianne Williamson, people who are speaking at this convention who you'd never see at a Democratic convention where Biden is, the nominee. So I've never seen in my time as an adult the kind of movement of this type that I'm seeing now. So I have as high hopes as I could have about something like this right now.
I just wanted to add on, in regards to the prison industrial complex, you also have these senators and congressmen and congresswomen who are invested in the prison industrial complex, and that's a conflict of interest, in my opinion. And I think a lot of these things need laws against them, so the people in power who are quote unquote leaders aren't investing in conflict of interest things like the prison industrial complex or the military industrial complex
or oil companies that are destroying the entire earth. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, so we do have a question from a listener, and that is, how do you feel about what's happening to third world countries, and what will be the future on that?
Yeah, I believe that, obviously, for what it's worth, this is certainly not a critique of the person asking the question, but I try to avoid use of terms like that, although that is probably the most descriptive term, so I knew what they were asking, like the concepts of third world and first world. But, I mean, obviously, it is these third world countries, so to speak, that get most taken advantage of by the countries that have all of the power. I am mostly a cultural relativist. Well, I do believe there are certain human rights that we should all have to that should be upheld across the world. I'm not an internationalist in the sense that I think any group of people in power should be mandating how other cultures live their lives. Like, I will say that things like Twitter, although we obviously see problems with people being suspended and kicked off and shadow banned and things like that, citizen journalists and things like that are incredibly important. When there are uprisings in smaller countries, we're not going to hear about it. We're hearing about it now in ways that we never would have before. There are so many alternatives to mainstream media. And for me, it just, again, like, brings up the importance of protecting not only like certified journalists, but all people who are, telling the stories of people who are being oppressed. I forget who said it, but someone said that, like, the most revolutionary thing you can do is like, and I'm paraphrasing again, but like, is tell what is happening, is share what is happening. And like, that's kind of what I try to do all the time. And it leads to articles written about me that, try to disparage me. But to me, I just see it as good publicity. As long as I can keep my family safe, I'm going to continue to do what I do. And there are certainly fewer resources in so-called third world countries, but those who have the ability to report on what is happening need to continue to do so. And they should all be greatly admired, because they're, in a lot of cases, they're putting themselves at far greater risk than we are, even with the kind of corruption we talk about in this country. Censorship is a major problem in a lot of these countries. I don't believe that, the UN or the United States or, any party should be coming in and change and influencing elections or any of that stuff. And so many of these countries are working from, in a lot of ways, similarly to descendants of the First Nations and descendants of African slaves in this country. They're working from, this hole. They're trying to dig themselves out of a hole that was created by colonialism and imperialism and white Christian European control.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. You said that. Yeah, I'm the guy that I said right now. I'm here because I said I want to talk. Like, I know what is happening right here. I'm from a country is in the middle of the world. Is Ecuador. It's the same name of the line.
I've been in Ecuador. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful country, to be honest. We got so much natural richness. We got so much things. We send all the primary things to make things bigger, to make the fabrication and too much things. We have good, we have too much things right here. But you can say you say about the journalists and all of that, and I understand. But at the same time, right here we got a big problem with all of this, with COVID and all of that, because all the princes, all the things that they say on TV, on other countries about us, is like they say with a little change. Let's talk about it like a little change, because we all know right here that all the brands, all the journalists are attacked by the same corruption of the president or some partidaries sides and all of that, because they try to hide some things about us, try to hide about what happened right here and what happened in the other neighborhood. We're so close right now because we can go out and just show what we need and say what we have to do, what we want to do. This is the point. We all have like the point that we know the corruption is so big right here. We know that we have too much bad guys right there saying that he's a president, he's the right hand of the president or something like that. Right now we got like three presidents, three guys trying to be president to the elections of February, and they're all like in a corruption cases. One of them that get in jail. I think a week ago, he get in jail just to send guns, and at the same time, he used to change money in medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Like he tried to sell medicine, and at the same time, stay with that money. So right now,
I get what you're saying.
So what are you does this corruption that you are privy to, does that make you feel like you want help from outside sources?
Yeah, to be honest, because we need like someone that take care about those. Because right now we're so damaged, to be honest.
Who would you trust to do that?
Right now, in who I'm trusting, in no one. Right here, no one.
Well, who would you trust from outside your country?
I really trust in Jose. I'm not the voice of all of here
Yeah,
the
I
Vox
know.
Populi. I know. I got a several vision from other guys right here, but I trust in them. Why? Because first of all, I think you're from there. You get a good economy at first, but at the same time, I'm in the other side that my own country, my old country, is sell to China because all our streets were made by China. All we got is made by China, but not. I know everything is made in China, but it's like everything is made in China. But right here we got all of China. My government have a good exchange of money, and at the same time, exchange of politicians' point of view with China. But we can handle this. We're in that
Yeah.
point that we can like just the population can see a better place for us. We're all trying to get out of here, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it's my country. It's like I'm telling you, get out of there. You can't because your country. You feel something for your country, but
Yeah.
right here,
That's
all the
true.
people is scared. All the people is scared. All the people is trying to say something, but we can't. I don't know if you know, but we got marched of some indigenous part right here.
Hmm.
We were like stop all the things that we were doing, like all the fabrics and all of that was stop. I'm sorry if you can't understand me because my English is not so good,
I
but
understand.
it's like we stop just for that march, and we think what we will do because we weren't producing anything. We
Yeah.
weren't using stuff. All of our resources are from indigenous people, from the mountains, from our coasts, from our sides. Where we can do something, we can't because when that happened, what does the government do? All they said was like, okay, we're gonna try to find out what to do. We're gonna try to find out a resolution for this. And what they do, what the indigenous people do, they was like there, and they were killed by so many of the police of the military. I'm not blaming the military system or the police system right here because I get family there. I know it's his job. I know it's their jobs. They have to do it, or they don't have a pay. They don't have something to
Yeah.
maintain his family, and that's the point. All the
I mean,
people here
yeah.
has to follow the things that we are doing, follow the system that these guys are doing, because we don't get another option. If we don't do this, we're gonna stick without work. We're gonna be probably a person with nothing, because right
Yeah.
here is the way we move. It's the way you move the things. If you don't follow the corruption, you won't do anything. At the same time, if you try to stand up in front of some of that guys, you're gonna be dead. Probably you're gonna be dead.
So
That
that's what I
happened,
was talking about. It's you're not alone in that case. Like what we experience here in this country, in response to protesting, is most of the time not as severe as what happens in other countries. And we in this country have a place called the School of the Americas, where we actually train right wing militias in Latin America, to do this kind of stuff, to quell any kind of uprising. So I really wish that I had a positive answer. I obviously believe that there are capabilities in your country, for someone who is of the people and for the people to rise up. But will that person be elected Will corruption prevent that person's election? Will they not, will they be assassinated? Will my own country come and try to influence the election because they are socialist? All of these things are possibilities. And it's certainly not the fault of any of the individuals living in the country who do what they have to do to survive.
Yeah, I feel it. But you have to think that
Powerful, strong person who's willing to take the risk, like you said, to face potential danger, to make change.
Yeah.
Let me add to that real quick. Just so you know, there was a secret payment that was put through to the president of Ecuador prior to Julian Assange getting expelled from
Rafael Correa.
the embassy.
It was 2 years ago, I think. It's a good point to treat because at the same time he tried to gain some influences doing that, like trying to protect someone that will be protect or won't be protect. I'm not gonna choose your answer, but it's like he tried to move influences with that, So that same guy that now he's in Belgium, I think, because I don't know why he's right there. He's with so much money. I don't know from where that money come, but he's right there, and we all right here are waiting for them. Too many people right here, like with his brains, think that he's a good guy and all that. It's not the truth. If he will a good president, if he was a good president, he will be here. He will be here. Why he's in Belgium? Because he's spending all our money of taxes, all our money of even of the clinics, all the hospitals, all the things. He just spent all the money of the medical funds, and at the same time the education funds. We're without education, and our presidents right now, Lenin Moreno.
I'm not sure about Rafael Correa. I'm talking about Lenin Moreno.
Right now.
Yeah. Lenin Moreno took a payment deal prior to Julian Assange's expel from the embassy.
Yeah, he's not in the embassy right now.
Right. Well, no, because he's in prison. But I mean, when he was expelled from the embassy and kicked out of the embassy, a couple weeks before, there was, or maybe it was a month, there was a payment. It was a very large payment to Ecuador and the Ecuadorian government. I forget what it was. It was like a couple million, I believe. Mark, do you remember?
Almost. I think it is like over a billion. I think almost 2 billion in IMF loans.
Was it billion?
IMF loans to Ecuador.
Yeah, I know. You have to think, and at this point, that all we're talking about is like things that we can't tag right now here, because like you have to see the clearance. I can see in your point of view, because right here we can. It's like I feel like Cubans. You know what I'm saying? I feel like Cuban. I just can hear what the people right here say. So it's like, to be honest, I'm not good information about that. I'm just talking the point that I was talking about with you. I have fortunes. Me too. We should search. We should search. I talked to you about if we do something, we finally get dead or killed. So that happened. If you search, you will find about an Israeli that was killed. We don't know who the heck was who killed him, but he was in a corruption side with an ex-president that is Abdallah Bucaram. That he was that get in jail and he got out. I don't know how. And he just get that Israeli that has proofs that Abdallah Bucaram has corruption sides. And what they try and what they say, I have the proofs that he do something, he get killed, and it was like, now the Israeli government says that it's so bad to someone like that Israeli, that citizen, get killed in jail because he was in jail, just in jail.
Right.
So
Well, that's
it's
the
like,
easiest way to kill somebody when
yeah,
they're in
the
jail. I
easiest,
mean,
the easiest way to kill somebody. And right here is even easier. Why? Because all the police in jail right here are blind. Are blind, and they can say anything. Because
well,
what I'm
willfully
saying,
blind and paid off more than likely.
yeah. And no, it's like it's not like in your country because they get paid. You know what I'm saying? They get just
Yeah,
like
no,
they just get
I was agreeing
fired.
with you.
They just get fired, and they don't have money to stay with his family. We're right here. I got this history for you. Right here, I got like a history of a guy that I met in the streets, just talking. And he was saying about something of his father. I said, what happened with his father? And he said that his father is in jail, but he just did like a minor crime, just to get in jail. And I say, why? Because he in jail, being in jail right here, is better to be poor, because right there they pay you something to eat. You get a bed where you can sleep. So right here, too many people are in jail just to be better than to be in the streets, and that's gonna make you a different point of view of what is happening right there. How many people in the whole world are living the same thing, and they try to get to live with another lifestyle just to get in prison to get something to eat,
Surprisingly, that also happens over here in the West as well.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
like
it's a problem all around, no matter where.
it's happening in all around the world. I feel you because right now we're not just countries, As you know, Anonymous is like a group of all places. We're worldwide, and we can see all the world in different point of views, and that's the best thing of us, because we can say this happened right here, this happened right there, and that's how we move. At the same time, we're just activists. We can't do anything if the people don't hear us. And the point of this is that all the people that are out there can hear what we're saying, can change his mind, and try to see what's happening right now. Because I know you will say that quarantine hadn't do nothing, like we didn't learn about that, but we have learned. We have learned that the all the governments, all the tries to have a good lead in a government is distorted right now, because all the ways to government are from like centuries ago, and we need something better. We're not the same society of centuries ago. You feel me?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody understands what you're saying and everything. In regards to getting back onto topics with you, Awkward, in regards to censorship, because you did mention it, I wanted to get your thoughts on the whole Facebook announcement where they're addressing movements and organizations tied to violence
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
going after everyone from Antifa to right-wing organizations to militias to basically it's very narrow, their words. They say dangerous individuals and organizations. That's it. And anyone can be considered a dangerous individial, and anybody can be any organization can be considered dangerous as well. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I like how they capitalize dangerous individuals and organizations. That's as a writer, I find that funny. Like they're the group, like an actual group known as dangerous individuals and organizations. I mean, I'm not like I think Facebook is horrific. I
Agreed.
think, I mean, my friend
too.
Adriel Hampton um, got famous by demonstrating the insanity of their ad policy for politicians. He ran for governor of California just so he could make fake Facebook ads. And I think it's really interesting that if you have filed to be running for public office, you can literally not only create posts that say whatever you want, flat out lies, dangerous statements about other people, but put money behind them, which, based on the Facebook algorithm, is what everyone is going to be seeing. While meanwhile, if they have deemed you to be, for example, an anarchist group, that you cannot even be on the platform at all. I am a long time, the New York Civil Liberties Union sponsored the release of my video for Throw Away the Key, like the first song I ever did on like police brutality and mass incarceration. I believe in civil liberties. I do not believe in censorship, but I also support groups that track hate organizations. QAnon is listed right next to anarchist groups. That to me is a problem. QAnon is its entire existence is based on conspiracy theories, which are essentially, a rewording of the protocols of the elders of Zion. Some don't choose to call them Jewish, but they're talking about, a global cabal that runs the entire world and is involved in sex trafficking. Removing them at the same time that you remove like It's Going Down News and Crime Think, which are groups trying to protect oppressed people, I think is incredibly problematic. But because I'm against censorship, I would not support the removal of groups that I disagree with either. It's a complicated thing for me. I mean, like there's that fundamental belief, but at the same time, like, I believe that the only good Nazi is a dead Nazi. So, I mean, it's certainly complicated. I think it is this new policy where friends of mine have been removed, is a slippery slope. There's no reason why I can't be the next, because I've been labeled as an Antifa militant. So I'm not in favor of it, but I would love for there to be other more powerful mechanisms to I guess, counteract the spread of disinformation and hate from groups like QAnon and the Proud Boys and other members of the alt-right that don't involve, corporate power silencing people.
Yeah, and I just think like this removal of these so-called like dissident groups, it only causes the normal people to lose their rights, because like you said, like the only good Nazi is a dead Nazi. Yeah, they're not going to be not Nazis if they get censored. It is like they're for their group, it's only going to say like, yeah, the establishment wants us gone, and we're all we have it right. We have the real truth and all these things. They're going to still be Nazis. They're just going to be hidden for us, and the only result is the normal people lose their rights.
Correct. Yeah, like you're absolutely right. I mean, they already use these, private apps and things, and like, less popular, less mainstream things like even like 4chan or Reddit, and like it definitely, like, as horrible as it's been, how Trump has empowered and enabled these people, it certainly has been in the long term possibly beneficial in allowing us to see this seedy underbelly, so to speak, this reality that of like 50% of this country voted for Trump, and a lot of them are Nazis. Like, this is not something that passed. Like, this is a current problem. And knowing that is the first step toward fighting it. So yeah, hiding them is just going to make us ignorant again. And, you know, and like I talked about, like it says, you know, those encouraging riots, including some who may identify as Antifa. So if I am recommending protest and have been labeled as Antifa, why would I not get removed? I have never killed anyone, and I'm less violent today than I was as a youth. I'm not the kind of person who uses Facebook to spread violence. I've never recommended violence, but I'm actually not a pacifist. I believe that pacifism is a pathology. I believe that, you know, we like asking people who are oppressed to be pacifists while governments are violent continues their oppression, and it's the opposite of what, you know, they like people who are violent respond to violence. So at the same time, though, I'm not calling for violence, and what I've just said could be enough to remove me, and I think that says a lot. You know, I almost never use Facebook, and I used to have like on my birth name, I had thousands of friends, so-called friends, you know, Facebook friends, and I deleted all of them, or I like it took me forever. I unfriended everybody. I locked my account. I have like 500 people that, you know, I've met in person, and, you know, but just prior to doing that, when I was like, I hadn't yet decided I was essentially not using Facebook anymore, I called someone out for being a misogynist, and they reported me, and I was kicked off of Facebook for a week. The person who is a misogynist attacking women was left on Facebook to continue to abuse people, whereas I, trying to protect women, was removed. So Facebook is not the answer to anything, and they certainly, you know, with a leader like the one they have, who's a good buddy of Trump, and, you know, and has dinner with, you know, members of the alt-right, like I definitely don't feel like it's a safe space for anyone like us, and their policies are arbitrarily applied.
Yeah, and
True.
if
Yeah,
you're-
the algorithm on Facebook just search the words, and that you can take care if you use it too much. I use it too much, and I can say that if you put some words, it will like block you for a month or for a week, even if you say something that is not like provocating something, you know, like don't try to be mean.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
that with sharing certain information, like even this show, like so you can share it in your own groups or on your own profile or whatever. But if you enter another group that doesn't belong to you, you share this show like 2 times and you get locked out.
Yeah.
So that's
And also a lot of it is done by, you know, people who make very little money, who are admins, and I believe some of it is done by bots, you know. So like, for example, you know, I was doing strategy and things like that for an organization of moms that are trying to get kids to stop smoking e-cigarettes, and we were not able to advertise because we were flagged for promoting smoking. Their organization is literally like in Congress, like speaking on panels, you know, trying to limit what these corporations can advertise to try to get kids through flavors to become addicts, and they get flagged because there's smoke in the photo. So that's just another example that's like not that, you know, like the way that these policies work is definitely not something that I can support.
No, exactly. Yeah, and like you said, like yeah, Zuckerberg, he's also involved with the Atlantic Council, U.S. government, NATO. I mean, it's obvious. It started out. There was a lot more free speech when it started out, and they like lured everyone in, and then at some point they started restricting everything, and it became a fully controlled platform, and
Yeah.
algorithms decide what you can say and what you can't say. And there are still people who say like, yeah, I use Facebook, I want to wake people up, but I always say to them like, yeah, but if you really said something that hurts the establishment, it wouldn't be on Facebook, honestly.
Yeah.
Not at this moment.
That is another problem in our countries, in our Latin American countries. All that we use, the most social media we use is Facebook. We don't get another one because Twitter and all that. So many people here don't know how to use it, and that's a problem right here.
Yep.
Yeah, it's because they're in bed with all the big advertisers, and like they make what is it, like 100 billion a year or something in advertisement. Like these are incredible amounts. It's more than some countries in the world. I mean, this platform becomes so big and powerful that they think they can do all of this, and they shouldn't be able to. If they want to have the role of being an internet service provider, so to speak, that provide the service of free speech, a service of uncontrolled speech, and have everyone on there, like 2 billion people on like a public marketplace, then they shouldn't be involved in any of these things. They can't take a stand. They need to be neutral, and then they have the rights also that neutral companies have, like ISPs. It's like the old. I was discussing this earlier on today with someone. Like on the phone, your phone company is not allowed to decide what you can say in your phone conversation either. They're not. They can't like censor out certain words. That gives them the neutrality right, and because of that, they have the also like the benefits of that, of being a neutral service provider. And the moment they start to decide like what is allowed and what is not, then they're no longer neutral, and they're a biased company, and they should be treated as such.
Well, they're no
Social
longer
media
a
is becoming
town
censored,
square.
really.
They're no longer a town square, classified as a town square. And I mean, this social censorship problem is really getting bad, guys. We badly need alternatives, and I'm building or helping build an alternative. There's other alternatives out there. Everybody needs to start using alternative social media platforms and stop feeding the beast of the central social media, because these companies are getting worse and worse with their censorship. And the only way to stop that is to build alternatives and have alternatives flourish, because they're not going to stop. They're going to do what they want to do. So in that case, you move to another platform. It's kind of like a cycle. I mean,
Yeah. Well, as Anons, we should never be centralized on one platform. It's never been like that. We've just been everywhere on all the platforms, and don't use one platform to do your things. And I see too many people using Facebook for everything, their communication, and you don't even know who's reading all of this.
yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. Just saying.
You just have
It's
your
not the smartest.
you can just plan your protest in your local police station. Like, yeah.
And they just post everything they do.
Yeah, that's not smart.
Hey, Awkward,
Yeah.
like we asked before, I mean, you want to do some of your music on the air if you want.
Yeah, please.
So you wanted me to
If you're up for it, I mean.
do like a verse from that song that we played, or what?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to were you serious about doing a beatbox? Can you do that? Or you want me to?
No, that was a
Yeah.
joke.
That's not a good idea. That's not a good idea.
All
Just
right. That's funny. All right. So it might be easier. So I'm not even going to try to like rap it to the same cadence that I did in the song. So maybe you could hear it The words better. So the first verse of the song's called 10 Demands. I see it as like the abolitionist anthem. The first verse kind of sets it up. And then, there's a middle verse, but the third verse is basically, the solution that we at 10 Demands see. And a video for it is being worked on right now. I'm really excited about that. So the first verse goes, every city, every town, burn the precinct to the ground. Badgeless federales sweep you up without a sound. Now they're crying for the Constitution, but the movement, moving since the dissolution of the institution of slavery to the slave codes, made to be new slaves with new chains and chain gangs to Jim Crow. They imputed crime to color, collapsed communities for profit, stop and frisk on body cams, reforms not for stopping it, but rather rendering a system even more permanent. So the rich rely on cops and the cops do the murdering. The media reports to ensure the social scare, so everyone fears a world if cops weren't there. Statistics show cops are trained for collecting collars, and punitive systems produce recidivists and dollars. If you're poor, black, and brown, you're born to the siren sound. Tell me, how much money are we paying so you'll beat us down?
That was great, man.
Dude, that was dope.
Thank you.
I just want to say, because I've been listening to you, and we've been friends for like years, man.
Yeah.
You've gotten like way better, like when it comes to wordplay and everything. I was a fan. I was a fan of your first couple songs, like People's Champion and everything. But that was incredible.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that, like, the People's Champ was probably, like, I probably wrote that at this point I don't know, 8 years ago.
It was a long time, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know you back then, but I heard the song probably maybe 5 years ago. I don't know. We met in 2016 when I was working at We Are Change, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. It's funny though, like so much has changed. So much in the world has changed. I mean, the video for the People's Champ, if you go to that corner of the East Village of New York City, there is now a luxury condo high-rise. At the time that we shot the video, it was outside like a world famous dive bar, disgusting place, called Mars Bar, covered in graffiti on the outside. That kind of says it all, the way that city certainly has changed with gentrification. And then if you look at me, how young and skinny I looked, if you see me in my interviews now, like my video interviews now, oh man, those were the good old days.
Hey, and it was amazing, of course. I want to ask you something else, because this is it's almost the 1st of September, right? And you have a big event, and it's a general strike on September the 1st. And perhaps you want to talk a bit more about that. Like, there are some demands, right?
Yes. Yeah. I've been working for the last, couple weeks with a number of groups, People Strike, Gen Strike, Corona Strike, Occupy Wall Street, and like kind of to set a tone for September 1st and organize on a national level. We've gotten some support from other countries saying they're going to join in. I know Nicaragua is one of them. But really what we've been striving to do, and in full disclosure, like, has not happened yet, is, we can only do so much on a national level. I think, just publicizing it is is positive. It certainly empowers and inspires people, and and any opportunity to strike fear into, the corporations that, we won't be working and we won't be shopping on those days is really positive. And the more people that engage, as individuals, the better. Like every single person who doesn't work, probably even more so, who doesn't shop, and certainly doesn't shop at a corporation on this day, the better. But as we saw on Juneteenth with the the port closing on the West Coast, it is possible for real mass actions to take place and have significant impacts. We are saying that the general strike is starting on September 1st, but there were strikes on Juneteenth, on Bastille Day, on May Day, which is another one that I helped organize a little bit, and the first of every month. But we'd like this one to sustain as long as it can. And the part that I started to say that I feel like is missing is, and I'm trying to I've been asked, how do I donate, things like that. I'm directing people to donate to mutual aid groups in their areas. And coronastrike.us has a list of tons of mutual aid groups that you can donate to. What we're really hoping to do is have a ton of local actions. And so I've been urging everyone to use the website peoplestrike.org and use the form on that site to submit local plans. But even they and Corona Strike have informed me that on Twitter you can tag them with your local plans. On Facebook you can tag Occupy Wall Street. And what hasn't happened yet that I'm really hoping for and I'm pushing for in our group is for People Strike to update their website to reflect all of the local actions, so that those who aren't organizing and don't necessarily know how to get linked in can find groups in their areas doing certain things. So, the more people that we engage with this, the more the economy is adversely impacted by people not working and not shopping, the more likely we are to demonstrate that they need us more than we need them. But obviously, it would be a lot more effective, and I would like to say will be a lot more effective when we can connect all of these local actions. The reason for the general strike is obviously pretty evident, with 30 million people at risk of eviction or in the process of eviction right now. With people not having the ability to not only pay their rent but buy food, care for their sick and dying, or educate their children. Everything has been kind of amplified by COVID-19. And for those who are blind or, not paying attention before, it has definitely demonstrated the inequity and polarization in this society that the poor and people of color, as always, are being, impacted far more than than white people and people with wealth. So the demands of the general strike are safe housing for everyone, a cancellation of rent, living wage, Medicare for all, equal education, racial and criminal justice, which I believe can be significantly bettered or increased through our 10 demands for justice. And lastly, universal basic income. With the amount of wealth in this country, and the amount specifically of, I forget what the word that is used, but the charity that has been given to corporations and all of these so-called stimulus packages, it's very clear that there's no lacking for money. We can essentially print money in this country, but for some reason, well, the reason is really clear. We, the people, are starving and becoming homeless, while corporations have been propped up, and so many small businesses have been forced to close. So many people have lost their jobs. So with universal basic income, $2,000 a month, for example, for everybody, the money is there. It's this just needs to happen because, economics don't trickle down. Wealth does not trickle down. The middle class is shrinking. The separation between rich and poor is growing. And there's absolutely no need for it. I see the general strike as, one part of this multi-pronged approach, along with Occupy Congress, along with the Million Mask March, along with continuing to vote for down ballot progressives, along with putting 10 for justice on the desks of Congress people, and along with further expanding the reach of the People's Party with the People's Convention on August 30th. There's a lot of ways that people can get involved, and I write about it a lot on Twitter. My account is Awkward Rap, AWKWORD RAP. And, taking part in any of these things is, helping make a major step in the right direction, holding our leaders accountable. And the only way to do that is to, along with protest, is to make them afraid, hit them where it hurts, their pockets. And, as long as people are protesting, as long as there are people like me demanding abolition, concepts like defunding, they'll be much more open to. If none of us go to work, if none of us shop, they're going to know that they need to implement what we're demanding, or the entire economy is going to crumble and their riches will diminish.
Yeah, and so the most important thing is if people want to join in with this thing, where do they need to go? Do they
So for Occupy Congress is this Saturday. My group, the United Left, is working on putting together a list of the home addresses of Congress people across this country, specifically the Senate, which is still on vacation. If you want to join, there will be people protesting and making these demands at Congress people's homes all over the country. So I would reach out to our United Left on Twitter. The People's Convention is a digital, Corona safe convention with speakers like Cornel West and Nina Turner and my friend Ryan Knight. That's August 30th, and the group is For a People's Party. You can reach out to them on Twitter. The general strike begins on September 1st, and as I said, the People's Strike, Gen Strike 2020, Corona Strike, and Occupy Wall Street, NYC, are all working with me and a number of others to make that happen. And obviously, Anonymous is responsible for the Million Mask March on November 5th. So, Twitter for me is a great resource. You can always, my DMs are open. I do miss some because I get harassed a lot by Nazis, but if you write to me, I'll try to write back. I definitely love connecting people and growing our massive coalition.
Yeah, networking is always a good idea to get like minds and also help out causes for sure. And yeah, it's definitely very hard to reach you. But that's with everybody, man. Everybody who has a massive following, it's hard to reach. Sometimes with me, with my old account, my original account, it was like near impossible to go through every message, man, because it's like when you get that quote unquote big, you get so many people that are trying to message you at once, and it's impossible to just go through all the messages.
Yeah,
So
and like I try to like I definitely find myself saying like, oh shit, I just saw this. I'm sorry for the late reply. And honestly, like if you have like if I happen to have a tweet that like goes viral on a given day, like Twitter like actually has a rate limit that like I can't even see all of the responses or retweets or anything like that.
yeah,
I used to give out my email address, although that's getting hard to keep up with too. But I started getting emails from people threatening me as well as the DA of Portland that were being added to kill lists. So I don't feel like getting those emails anymore. But Twitter's really the best way, and like I said, like I have no ego whatsoever. I don't care how many followers you have. I will do my best to respond to you.
no, I don't either. It's just it gets to the point where like you're getting too many messages to the point where you can't keep up with it.
Yeah, but it's a good problem to have. I appreciate all the people who follow me. It enables me to spread these messages.
Oh, for sure, yeah, for sure, for networking and everything else, yeah.
Exactly, and to more effectively organize.
Yep.
Hey, so we did about 2.5 hours. I'm not sure. Do you wanna? Is there something else you want to mention on air? I mean,
No. I mean, if anyone has stayed through all of this, I appreciate you. When I went into this, I told Amber, I think, like I want to do 30 minutes. But it's
30 minutes.
Yeah. Because honestly, man, like, and then she told me that you guys talked for 4 hours. My wife went to bed, a long time ago. So once it was past like an hour, I was like, all right, now she's asleep. I can stay on as long as I can. I mean, I feel like at this point, people are probably sick of me. I don't have anything else I feel desperately in need of sharing. But yeah.
Let me see here.
this time is always so it just flies. Like it's just like before you know it, it's like 2 hours gone. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, 30 minutes would have been impossible, to be honest with you. I mean,
But
for us, yeah.
I know, but I do try to tell people that, like, one, because normally, like, I also try not to do calls at night. So, like, normally it's the middle of the day, and I just don't have the time to give that much time. But also, like, the structure of this is different, where you guys, like, it's always long, and like there are people who, are actively engaged and want to listen, and actually, as we experienced, like participate sometimes. Like normally, if I'm just like, awkward's being interviewed, like I feel like in general people have a really short attention span. Like if I can cut it down to 10 minutes, that's what I'm looking for. I don't think people pay attention. So, and I need to work on being less long-winded.
Oh yeah, you're definitely right when it comes to in regards to people's attention spans. Like YouTube videos with 10 minutes, they have more views than longer videos. Like it's a known thing.
Yeah, and like if I'm doing like some type of video to like announce something, I want it to be no more than 2 minutes. Like I want to, if I can make a video that's 60 seconds, that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, that's
a
true
whole
too.
other conversation. That's like, we don't need to talk about branding on an anonymous call.
No, but we do all appreciate you coming on air with us. I mean, and you should just return whenever you want. I mean, if there's something
I
important.
appreciate it. Yeah, maybe because you do stream on YouTube, I'd love to come back, possibly for a shorter amount of time, but maybe to stream the video for your followers to watch.
Yeah, that would be great.
And if we advertise it, like, you know, we could do a Q&A or something after the video runs.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you guys having me on as well. And, you know, whenever you guys, you know, share the things I'm trying to put out there, you know, you know, obviously I'm a huge supporter of Anonymous. So thank you for everything you guys do.
All right, man. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you all soon.
Wait. Before you go, I want to see a collaboration with you and Diesel.
Wait, who's Diesel?
Diesel Automatic, the guy I would like tag you with.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I'm up for it. Like, now that I have recording capabilities at my home again, I'm open to whatever. You know, the guy who sang the hook on 10 Demands also made the beat. I was introduced to him because he's like an activist, like rapper himself. And like, you know, I don't like other rappers. So I asked him to do my beat and hook. And I'm hoping to work. He's slacking on me. I asked him to send me more. I want to make a whole album with him. But yeah, I know that Diesel and I have like probably people who listen to him would like my stuff, and people who listen to me would probably like his stuff. So that was not a bad suggestion at all.
If I ever get my old account back, I'm gonna hook you up with Immortal Technique because he used to follow me.
Oh yeah,
I hear that, dude.
I know, it's funny. Like, I've known Immortal Technique for years.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, we know each other. We follow each other on Twitter, but like, when I did Worldview back in 2014, I was like heavily focused on like, you know, the whole concept for the album was like this global perspective, and I got, you know, 15 different countries involved, and I had like tons of guests on every song. At the time, I definitely tried to get Immortal Technique. I've had a ton of people, you know, who like people who don't know say I'm like Eminem. Like, people who do know are like, oh, you remind me of Immortal Technique. He's hard to get a hold of, man. Like, I also know like his publicist and stuff, and that collaboration has never happened. I'd certainly be up for it if someone wants to bother him about it, but I'm not going to do that anymore. You know, like at this point, like I'm about like focusing on like the topics that I want to talk about in my music, and, you know, really connecting with people who can add to it, but like singing a hook that like I wouldn't be able to sing as well, and I don't make beats. So, you know, connecting with producers who like actually want to make beats for someone like me, you know, who have similar ideologies to me, like that's definitely more my focus. But having said all that, I'm thinking of doing a remix of 10 Demands once it's out, and getting a couple artists who are like me to do verses as well. I reached out to Napoleon the Legend. That's the only guy I've asked so far, but that's a possibility in the future.
I think based off of Diesel's music, he'd be down to do something like that. I mean,
I'm sure he would.
He's a real cool guy. I mean, I can't contact him for you anymore because fucking Twitter. But...
No, I don't need you to. He and I are friends also.
Okay, all right.
Like, in the same way that I'm like not at all arrogant, I'm like, or I try at least to be the opposite of arrogant when it comes to organizing and like, you know, and honestly in hip hop culture too, like the reason that have not received negative feedback given what I look like, you know, I think has been that I'm true to who I am. I don't try to speak a certain way. I don't try to talk about things that aren't about me. I honored my predecessors, you know, when Chuck D co-signed me, like that was like the greatest moment of my life, you know, but like, and I try to be humble, and like I understand my place as a straight Jewish guy in activist circles as well. But when it comes to like rappers are like, even I, like, we do lean toward this arrogance in terms of like the way we hold ourselves in that world. So like I can't break that part. Like I don't like there's only certain people who I'm gonna reach out to, because that is humbling myself to be like, I want you on my song. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, if you say more so like I want to collaborate with you, I mean, I guess it would be come off a little bit differently, but yeah, no,
but it's still the same thing. Like, you know, I have to feel like, you know, it would be honestly like if I'm gonna ask someone, like I want to feel like it would be an honor to me to have them on the song. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
So honestly,
years ago when you did the, I think it was People's Champion. I think it was the album itself, right? It was called People's Champion. There was a whole bunch of artists on there.
No, that was Worldview.
Okay.
And then the People's Champ was this really old song that I remixed twice. I did one song on the album that I was selling, like with the proceeds going to charity, and then there was another remix with other artists that was on the free bonus disc. There were like 50 rappers on that, and you know, and it like just started. You know, like I had no following. Like, you know, I was selling out shows in Connecticut, but like, and then like I was doing shows in New York City and opening for people and like doing a little touring, but back then it was really different. Like like all of those things, like, you know, I just wanted to like pay deference to the culture that I feel like helped save my life. And by asking, you know, artists that I looked up to, like Sean Price or Joel Ortiz, or Ill Bill or KRS-One, like that was like all like it's incredible experience for me, you know. But now I'm almost 40. Like my life is like established. I'm very busy doing activist stuff and being a journalist. Like when I make music, it's like it's far less frequent, and it's like I know I am making this song about 10 demands that I helped co-found. Like it doesn't fit. It's a whole different thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But yeah, nevertheless, I do like Diesel as a human being. I would totally jump on a song with him if he wants.
Yeah, what you guys agree on, of course, is the whole surveillance system and the censorship and the destruction of free speech and all these things. So it would be amazing to listen to it.
All right, well, go hit him up on Twitter and tell him to send me a beat.
Yeah,
he's got beat makers. I know that for sure. I forget what album he did. It was like with a fist on the top, and there was like a whole bunch of artists on it. It was really, really good. Well done. I can't remember what it was called off the top of my head.
How do you spell his first name? Is it
DISL _automatic?
DISEL, right?
No E. DISL.
Oh, DISL. Right.
Diesel, not Diesel.
Right. But he is Diesel. That's like part of his thing. He's jacked.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's also a vegan too. It's pretty surprising.
I know, and I wish that weren't true. Like that is. I wish that not. No. Like I'm happy he's a vegan. I wish it wasn't true that it is surprising that he is jacked as a vegan, because I was a vegan for 5 years, and the only reason I stopped is I got incredibly skinny and started losing my hair.
Oh wow!
So that sucked. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was not what I was hoping for. I'm a huge supporter of veganism. I don't understand it. I'm looking at pictures right now because I wanted to find that album cover you're talking about, and I see this picture of him. Like, it's absurd what he looks like. Actually.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, he came out of prison, and he reformed himself. He's a great example. I mean, I think he was arrested for having drugs or something on him. Don't quote me on that, but I mean, he's a real good guy.
I know him as like having similar ideologies to me. I did not know his story at all, and that, you know, I don't know how, like, I don't know what this will mean to people. Like, it could be seen as bad or good, but that kind of changes my outlook a little bit in a positive way for me.
Yeah, he came out. Yeah, he came out of prison. He reformed himself, and
How to find this album, but whatever.
yeah, some of his songs, literally, they talk about him being in prison, coming out, and changing his life around. And I think he's a very powerful speaker and rapper in general. So yeah, I would love to hear you guys do a collaboration, and I think it'd be a dope song. And if you're in contact with Diesel, tell him to follow me on my backup, because I have no way of contacting him.
I will.
With that, we're gonna cut off the show. But
All right. Sounds good. Now we can tell him we talked about him too.
Yeah. So, hey, so once again, thank you for coming on with us, and you're welcome to come on every time you want. You can find the server and just jump in whenever. So.
Oh, I see. All right, cool. Yeah, but I'll definitely let you know in advance, like once the video's out, if you guys want to play that. Totally up to you. No pressure.
Okay.
All right, fellas. Good talking to you. Have a great night.
You too.
you as well, brother. Later.
Yeah,
Alright,
thanks again.
So I want to thank everyone for listening. I guess it's been 2 hours and 40 minutes. We'll be back. I know we'll be back Sunday this time too for an Asia episode, ABB Asia, and next Thursday we'll be back again with a regular episode. And I'm not sure what we will do, but there's plenty to discuss. I mean, tomorrow, if I'm correct, we will hear if the Assange hearing is going to continue in September. The U.S. government is trying to delay the hearing using some sneaky tricks. Today. For us it's today. For Europeans it's today. We're going to hear if the Assange hearing is going to continue September the 7th. And if it's going to continue, it's necessary that we organize big protests on the street, and we make sure that our opinions are heard about this insane situation. An innocent journalist in jail for being a journalist, right? So please, guys, share this around, because we're all literally shadow banned. And I shared this episode from my account, and it's fully shadow banned, so it can't even be seen. And yeah, some of our accounts are suspended too, and it is insane at this moment. This is in this case talking about Twitter, but other platforms is not much better. We'll upload this episode on the Anonymous Worldwide YouTube too. It's now broadcasted on Anonymous Bites Back YouTube. You will be able to watch it at least in some way, but please share it around. That's what we depend on. And thanks everyone again for listening.
No. Alamo has to say.
The anonymous PSA is to make sure you spay and neuter all politicians.
Okay, that's okay. I'm going to end the stream now.